Mini carry handle gang. Gang gang. Hi guys and gals, this is Alex from ANR Design here. Many of you might not know, but we own the brand ANVL. That's ANVL. ANVL is a brand of ANR Design, and it's our aluminum manufacturing brand. We don't make these parts in-house. We do outsource the production of our ANVL products. ANVL's flagship product was the ANVL UKON RMR that we did for a big project for an unnamed military unit, actually two of them. We also worked with SIG on that to pair them with the Rattler system because there was a military requirement with two separate entities that needed backup iron sights on the Sig Sauer Rattler MCX, but they didn't want backup iron sights on the Rattler MCX because traditional irons flip up on the front and the rear. And both military units wanted no snag points on the rail of the MCX Rattler to cause issues getting the gun out of a bag or from concealment, but they still had a backup iron sight requirement. Now, a lot of you are gonna say, but my sight radius. Well, sight radius is a really interesting concept. It typically has more of an effect on pistols because there's a lot of motion and movement in your hands when you're lining up your iron sights. And if many of you are good shooters with a pistol, you could pick up something like a SIG P238 and easily ding an IPSC steel at 50 yards. Well, the concept behind the ANVL UKON is to, in fact, have a short sight radius that hangs out in the lower thirds of the optical window. Now, that's not lower thirds height, that is lower thirds optical window. These optic mounts that I have in front of me are both 1.93 optical center mounts. And the actual witness of the rear irons and the front iron just occupy the lower thirds of this window. They have elevation built into them. So it is a standard AR-15 front sight post assembly. You can use a front sight post adjustment tool to adjust your elevation. And typically, once my red dot is zeroed on the rifle, I like to line up my iron sights with elevation-wise, lining up the red dot, apple on a post style, or split the dot with the top of the front sight post itself. And that's typically zeroed. You can zero it on paper and bag your gun and get a actual dead nut zero on your iron sight system. But typically, if you match it to your red dot and you're bagged and all of your vectors are lining up, vectors are simply just lines, you will be getting impacts, confirmed impacts on IPSC steel at 50 yards. These are emergency backup iron sights. These aren't super dialed in, I'm gonna ding a steel target at 500 meters or 500 yards. This is an emergency backup iron sight system that allows you to have all this extra rail space. This is a Noveske N4 SBR with a very small amount of rail space. I've got my weapon light switch here and my laser device here. I don't have room for backup iron sights forward and aft on this, but I do have backup iron sights just in case my dot goes down, my dot is broken, or I forget to turn my optic on and I need to line up my irons quickly. Now, because the iron sights are in the same focal plane, that means that if you hold up the UKON system in front of your face, but a little bit more forward where you would normally run an optic, both the front sight post and the rear sight post will both be in focus. Now, because it's a super short sight radius, they are so close together, they are both in focus. You're able to line up your front sight post and match it to the top of your rear sights on the mounting system. And you will be able, if the Picatinny rail that you are mounting it to is mechanical center on the rifle to bore. Now, obviously, there's tolerances on all guns. Is my handguard or is my barrel tight? Is my upper receiver that my optic mount actually mechanically centered to the center of the bore? The answer is we don't know. Not all guns are created equal and not all tolerancing is equal. But I can assure you that if you do have an in-spec upper receiver with a Picatinny rail where your optic mount is mounted to, and we also check the center line of all of our ANVL UKONs to make sure that they are truly mechanical center when they come off the machines, you will get confirmed impacts on an IPSC full-size steel target at 50 yards for an emergency backup. This system is in use by many military units right now. Our ANVL T2 193 height UKONs are NATO stock numbered because they are in service with a military unit that have used them and confirmed them. Right now we have a massive push in Poland with these. They are getting picked up by a few units in Poland. So you'll see us post on our ANVL page a lot of Polish operators running our optic mount system. So again, a lot of people will complain about the sight radius distance. If you do have the ability to mount and you don't mind running it, the more forward that you can run the ANVL UKON system on a weapon system, the better. Now, if you have a monolithic upper, like a SIG MCX or a Tavor or other platforms with a monolithic rail, this is where the ANVL UKON shines the most, because the farther away you can get the optic from your face, the better it'll be to achieve no rear sight blurring. I do get a little bit of rear sight blurring mounting it to the upper receiver on an AR. It's not a big deal. If you watch this video of me shooting a MCX TAC Ops from 25 yards out to 36 yards, and I'm cycling through all the targets, and I'm getting my impacts on all the targets, I do have a little bit of rear sight blurring because I am running it at the same position I run on my ARs, but I'm still getting my impacts. All right, that was what? 14 shots in a row, hit all my targets. No red dot. It might not have the sight radius or adjustable windage, but again, modern day dots like aim points, the SIG Romeo 4TX Pros, and many of the other optics on the market are really, really good and really, really robust. Again, it's an emergency backup. It gets the job done where you need it. We know it looks like a carry handle. We like that. It's the lightest weight optic mounts on the market for their associated optics. Even with the front sight post and rear sight post assembly, like our T2 optic is mega lightweight compared to its competitors. We have recoil lugs on our mounts as well. And these sometimes, depending on the tolerancing of your rail, will seem more like a press fit. Like you have to remove the cleats off one side and wiggle it down into place. We wanted our tolerancing very tight because we are trying to keep mechanical zero on our optic mounts and for you, the end user. The other thing to consider, like the aim points, the recoil lug on the mounting surface of the aim point T2, H2, H1 is a slightly tapered lug. And when you get your ANVL UKON T2, we ran the T2 T1s a little tighter because we did notice a range in tolerancing from aim point. So if your optic does feel slightly tight on your mount when you're going to mount your optic for the first time, you can simply hold your optic in place and squeeze it with 2 fingers, pressing it up, pressing the mount as tight up into the optic itself. And then when you go to tighten your bolts, because we do like to get them as close to a press fit as possible, we do recommend tightening your screws in a cross bolt pattern and only tightening like 1 thread rotation at a time. So like tighten this one, 1.5 to a full rotation, then go down here, tighten that 1.5, this 1 to half, or half to 1, and this half to 1. And it'll slowly compress the optic mount onto the optic and vice versa. Anyway, that ensures tightest fit. There'll be no slip of the optic on the optic mount ever. And then with our tight recoil lug assembly, you're also getting tight fit to the rail. So mechanically, you know, the rifle or weapon system rail could be machined slightly off. So if you do get your gun bagged and on range and you're seeing your groups maybe like low left or whatever, well, it wouldn't be low, but left or right of where you're aiming, it could be a tolerancing with the rail itself or what it's mounted to. We recently did a video on the Palmetto State Armory Crink where we put an ANVL UKON RMR on it. Surprisingly, mounting it to a Picatinny rail that we machined into the top of the dust cover and mounting that RMR, it was centerline impacts out to 36 yards. But typically something like an AK where the dust cover has movement to it or it has flex to it, you might not get the same results versus like a fully monolithic MCX rattler where you can run your optic a little bit more forward. You're gonna have better tolerancing, less blurring of irons. You can run it, half a body width of the ANVL UKON forward past your ejection cover. That's a really ideal location if you can do it. Obviously on an AR, you want to always mount your optics to the receiver itself, not the handguard. But when you have something like a monolithic or a semi-monolithic, you can run it more forward. We do recommend that. It also opens up your field of view. So we're really happy and proud of this system, and it's been around for quite a while actually. A lot of people didn't realize we've been doing this for about 7 years now. But we hope this answers all the questions about the ANVL UKON system here at ANR Design and ANVL Manufacturing.